You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and it is Friday night, so we'd like to cover something a little bit different, a little bit weird, a little bit wonderful. And well, they're still on mute. They're nattering away in my ear. It's great. It's my bit. You should see the fingers being pointed at me. Anyway, joining me tonight is the lovely Marcus Manlius. Good evening, Marcus.
Marcus Manlius. Do you know my friend, the Bigger Stickers?
You know what?
What?
Oh, God, it started all. That's your new name, Marcus Manlius.
Marcus Manlius. Brassica olearia capitata, yes.
I love it. I love it. And Mr. Carl Hutchinson is in the studio with us as well. Good evening, Carl.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? How's Kerry? How's Mark? How's everything going?
Oh, it's all going good. It's Friday night.
We just waited for Kerry to fall off the sofa through lack of sleep, through working far too much, and we're just waiting for you to go kaboof and face plant the desk. That's all.
I'm not going to be face planting the desk because it's a solid wooden old farmhouse kitchen table, and if I do that, it's going to hurt.
A lot. So, right, first things first, let's get this bit out of the way. You, Carl, this is you, Carl over there, Mr. Carl Hutchinson, you had a very strange...
Who are you pointing at? You're pointing at the dog or me, one of the two?
No, on my screen, Carl's there. But you're there too, which is really weird, right? Anyway, Carl had a really strange thing happen to him on the way home from work today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I left work just after 6 o'clock, and driving back to home normally at that sort of time takes 45 minutes to an hour. But there was some traffic problems on the route I was going. So there's a little cut through that I take, which basically anybody that knows Kent, you go down some back roads behind Faversham, Newington, Tenham, and then you come back out in Sittingbourne. So, but on my sat nav, it came up with roadworks going to be 2 hours to get home, and I'm like, no, it's not going to take me 2 hours. So I turned off at the quickest little road off, heading down there, a lot of cars in front. Traffic started to ease up, so I was the only one on the road, and there's a particular bend on a particular area of the road which has an old water mill, which has a wall in front of it and a little garden. I don't believe that there's anybody actually living in there. I think the front of it is a shop at that time, and that time it was closed. So as I was coming up, I knew you have to slow down because the road narrows from 2 to you can just about get a car around it. So as I'm driving along, I knew the corner, so I'm slowing down, and out of my peripheral, I see a guy, a young adult, probably 23, 24, wearing a black jacket, green sort of like T-shirty underneath, and jeans, and he's like waving his hands to get me to slow down. So I literally stopped. And seconds later, this massive big lorry came round the tight bend. And I'm thinking, if I'd have gone round there at any speed, we'd have had a head-on, little bit of a crunchy moment. Whether it was at speed, whether it wouldn't have been nice, but at low speed it would have been okay. But it would have still damaged my car. So I'm like, okay. And this lorry, I then had to reverse a little bit to let this lorry go past. And then I look over to where this guy was standing, which is in front of the old warehouse, and he's not there. And the only way that guy... There's no doors into the warehouse because it's a complete waterfront, and because it's a country road, so the only way to get past me or out of sight would be to get onto the road, and I would have seen him. I'm not saying that's paranormal. I'm not going to say that 100%. But it was just quite weird because I saw this guy waving, like, you know, when the people like tell you to slow.
Yeah.
And I did, and I luckily I stopped because I was going to talk to the guy that slowed me down and say what's wrong. But as I stopped, this Arctic came around the corner and filled up the whole road and couldn't get past. So if I'd have gone round even at the speed I was doing, we'd have met head on. I'm not saying we'd have hit each other, but we stopped. I stopped it's a completely blind bend. You can't see around it. It's like literally like right angles, and this watermill building digs into the road, which narrows the road because the watermill goes underneath the road to the farm directly opposite. So that was the weird experience I had this evening.
I've got one thing to say to you, mate. We are not going to call you Carl anymore. We are going to call you Rod Sterling.
Who?
The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone. He presented the Twilight Zone.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know what? It's lost on people.
I'm sorry. I don't have Mr. Rod Sterling's voice or his dress sense. I wear flannel. That guy was quite dapper in a shirt and tie.
He was very dapper, yeah.
There was a tumbleweed moment, though, Carl, weren't there, when he said it? We were both like, what? Where's he?
It
what?
was only when he said, yeah. But, yeah. Very, very weird experience.
I didn't shout out aliens.
Not yet, you haven't, but I'm sure you will at some point tonight.
Guaranteed I will.
I'm sure, I guaranteed, right? Because tonight we are talking about something that's it's a strange thing. I came across this. I kind of knew about it, but I came across this whilst I was on my little hollybobs over Christmas, and I thought, it's worth talking about because I know what you guys are like for seeing aliens here, there and everywhere. Now, this is the story of a famous miracle that happened in Fatima in Portugal that began in May of 1917 when 3 children, 7, 9 and 10, allegedly, but various sites, their ages vary, claimed to have encountered the Virgin Mary on their way home or whilst they were tending a flock of sheep. What's interesting about this is the oldest girl, Lucia, was the only one to actually speak to her. The other 2 were just like there, really.
There was also photos taken because it was a time when photography was, fair, just getting through its infancy, and there was on some of them they actually took photos.
Yeah, well, they were, because I tell you what happened. Basically, I mean, we'll go into a bit more depth in a moment, but basically they had this encounter. Told their parents weren't very happy, so they were like, shush, 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 don't tell anybody. But then it happened again, and, then word started to spread. And then by the end, the last encounter, 70,000 people attended this.
That's right.
But this is a build-up over, 7 months or 8 months. And they didn't just encounter the Virgin Mary, they had angel apparitions. That's what they classed it as to start with, was angel apparitions to start with.
And the most people and the most photos were taken on, I can't remember if it was the second one or the last one, but the one that was in October the 13th, I think it was, and that's when it had the 70,000 people.
Yeah.
Was it the last one? Yeah, it was. It was the last one on October the 13th. Yeah, and that was where 70,000 people were watching and waiting.
Can I ask a quick question? So these sightings to the 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
So were they experiences, or was it just they saw them and they thought, "Oh, that's weird"?
No, she actually spoke to them.
Or did they give her information out?
Yeah, there was like proper like interaction and stuff, and not just like words. It weren't just like words, was it? It was like there was lightning out of clear skies, and
the sun went weird and had a haze round it and everything.
Well, some people said the sun danced, which physical impossibility, but a lot of people said that this was on the last encounter. But when we started looking at it from the first, I'm so going to shout at my children in a minute. When they very first started, There were these kids. They look after the flock of sheep. Now, bearing in mind, this is Portugal. This is 1916. The first apparition happened.
They were little flockers, yes.
They had like a little flock of sheep, right? And they looked after them. I think you have to keep very much in mind how religious they were anyway.
Catholic.
Portugal is a very religious country. It's a bit like Spain when it comes to that. It's the same sort of religious ethos to it.
Mm-hmm. And also, what you've got going on in the background of all this is World War One.
Yeah, at the end of a couple of years, end of World War. No, hang on. No, World War One was still going on.
Yeah. So all of this is going on in the background, and although where they lived wasn't particularly affected by the war, they're going to know about it. They're going to know about the things that are happening. I mean, I think it's safe to say you would have to live under a rock to not know what was going on. Now,
especially in 2016. 1916.
Uh-huh. So they were out looking after their sheep, and it was raining, and they hid in a cave to start with. Then the rain stopped, they came out, they had their lunch. Apparently they said a rosary, which kind of indicates their mental self-belief systems and the way they're brought up. And they had a game of jacks, and then they were just like playing and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, on this lovely day, a strong wind blew, a light enveloped them, and then this angel stepped forth and spoke to them.
Apparently he was an incredibly handsome, shining young man.
Apparently he was. But there was obviously something that happened to them.
Yeah.
But I wondered, as I do, whether or not when they were in the cave they had inhaled some fumes or something, because there's a massive cave systems in Portugal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they hallucinated.
Well, you've got 3 ways of looking at it, really. You've got they made it up.
Mm-hmm.
They were interfered with by a natural occurrence, i.e. fumes, as you're saying, or they did see somebody that they saw.
The only problem I've got with this, because I mean you're right, there could have been like some weird mold or something in there that could have caused it, or there may even have been some weird type of mushrooms that release spores and things. But it's the fact that it appeared twice more, and they hadn't been in the caves. That's what got me. But interestingly enough, it was Lucia Santos and 2 of her cousins, so they were all family, because you had Francisco and Jacinta. So
okay, so if it was a clear day, why did you go into the cave initially?
Well, no, when they went into the cave, it was raining. So that's why they went into the cave in the first place. I can't imagine they went far into the cave, but it might have been enough.
If they've got a flock of sheep, it'd be very difficult to get the flock of sheep all the way into a cave.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought they would have herded the sheep into the cave.
They were little flockers, I told you. There's one thing that I do find very interesting in their account. They talk about when the sun, when the rain broke and the sun's rays were coming down, and they said that this guy was walking over the top of the olive trees, and where he was walking, he was actually following the sun's rays, the exact angle and rate of descent and everything, and he was coming down on one of the rays above the olive trees. I find that quite interesting that they said that,
So basically what you're saying was there's The escalator from heaven came down and the guy was walking down an escalator.
Yeah, on top of olive trees. But the fact that one was 8 years old, one was 6-year-old, and they were sheep herders, and they lived in the middle of, nowhere in Portugal at that time, because you've got to remember then, beginning in the 19th century, imaginations weren't that rife. But it's the fact that they described him coming down at that angle and rate of descent, you know?
Not necessarily. I would say, I'll play devil's advocate. I think their imaginations probably were a lot more than some children.
They may have read Peter Pan, I don't know.
Well, you don't know, do you? But if they're really religious, then they certainly have a wealth of imagination fodder in their little brains, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, he told them he was the angel of peace, and he taught them a prayer of adoration.
He did.
He didn't say his name was Jimmy Savile or anything like that, so I think they were safe.
Anyway, the second apparition of an angel. God, he goes so far sometimes. It occurred in the summer, and they were playing near the well of Lucia's house. So this is not in the same area. This is somewhere different. And again, the angel popped down and said, like, you know, how you doing? Have you been praying?
What, how you doing?
How you doing?
Have you seen me winks?
As you do. Now, this is where I get a little worried, I have to say, because now the words I'm about to say I got from a very religious site that is relating the incident. So I don't believe that the angel would have said this to them, quite frankly, but this is what the site that I got this information said. Oh, hello. Make everything you do a sacrifice and offer it as an act of reparation for the sins by which God is offended, and as a petition for the conversion of sinners. By this you will bring peace to your country. I am its guardian angel, the angel of Portugal. Above all, accept and bear with submission all the suffering the Lord will send you. That's a little worrying. That must be worrying for kids to get something like that.
Well, every time he appeared, he got them to, like the second time when they were playing, as you say, he got them to pray and do a specific prayer and this, that and the other. And it's like, there does seem to be something in there. But I've got a little bit of a problem. What you were saying about them being extremely religious and this, that and the other, it's when they describe what he did on one of the occasions with the chalice and this, that and the other, I'm like, that's extremely religious icon, isn't it?
Incredible. Well, I just find this whole thing very worrying. I mean, I find
Shall
it.
I tell you what happened?
No,
Well,
I'm a little worried now when he says that. When he says, "I'll tell you what happened."
Oh no, I wasn't going to do anything
but
rude.
From
No, I was
an
actually
outside idea, you've got 3 witnesses that are very, very young.
Yeah.
They've then described this man coming down above the olive trees during the sunbeam, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
He then gave them a message. And if the words that you've just said, Kerry, were correct, that is quite deep language for an adult to understand or take on board.
Yeah.
The ages of the 3 children that saw that, I'm a little bit confused. Would they have said it in that way, Mark, do you think?
When he appeared the second time and interrupted them playing, he said, "What are you doing? Pray. Pray a great deal. The most holy hearts of Jesus and Mary have merciful designs for you. Offer prayers and sacrifice."
Sorry, just going back. Okay, so you said pray. What are you doing? What was the other bit?
Pray a lot. The most holy hearts of Jesus and Mary have merciful designs for you. Offer sacrifices and prayers to the Most High.
That's still very adult.
Not something a 6-year-old would come out with.
That's very adult language for a 6, 12 and whatever age the other one was to come up with and say this too. And that's the bit that I'm...
Well, he claimed he was the angel of Portugal.
Yeah.
Its guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just... Because of the words that have been used...
I know, I'm with you. I'm with you completely.
They are. I mean, most 6-year-olds these days are looking to go bruv.
But this is... I would like to point this out, right? This is hearsay. So this is like something... an adult's account of what was said. So maybe this isn't how the children put it. Maybe this is a religious perspective of what was said as an adult interpreting it to make it seem more religious. Yeah, a Chinese whisper scenario. Because I read this and I was like, what? Like, God, if you're going to scare kids, there's certainly one way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, but that wouldn't scare kids. That'd be words they're going, sorry, what am I supposed to be? What? If you're going to scare kids at like 6 and 12, you say, I'm going to take your money off you and you're going to be attacked by the bogeyman. You're not going to
go, Well, there was another thing that happened, because it wasn't actually there was 3 miracles, because they had these things written down, but he appeared more than 3 times, and there was also various places say it was a she that appeared. But it's one of the appearances that got me, and it, like as you said, rightly so, very grown up and very adult for some of these things.
Yeah.
But it's one of the appearances, and it's the things that he did in that. There's no way a 6-year-old would come out with that.
No.
I mean.
Well, but that's the youngest.
It's an adult putting what the kids said and put it into adult terms.
Yeah.
In my eyes. Anyway.
Yeah.
Also, as I said, the family and the village shunned them to start with and said, Jesus, you don't know what you're talking about. I can't do frickin' Portugal, but there you go. You know.
So we've got Irish. Hey-ho.
It's Portuguese accent I've ever heard.
I could do it a different way. I can do North Portugal. Well, we have ways of making you talk here. Bring in the soft cushion and the computer, and
probably not the
German.
Way during World War One.
No, probably not.
Anyway, Mario.
Anyway, we then
No, not Italian either.
Right. So we come then to the third apparition of an angel. So we're still not on the Virgin Mary. This is good old angels popping down to see the girls.
So the first one, he came on the trees, on the light.
Yeah.
The second one, stopped praying, stopped doing blah, 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 blah. And then there's a third time. So
this is a third angel.
It's actually quite
if you look back and look at Jesus appeared 3 times after he died.
And the cave. And the third one, they were praying. They decided, when they were out shepherding, they decided to pray near that same cave again. So there might be something, with regards to there's something in the cave or near the cave.
Okay, that's now starting to make more sense now. It's
It's this apparition that they saw that I find for little kids was quite... I won't say horrific, but it was quite startling, I'll say that. I mean, do you want me to say what it was?
Yeah, carry on, yeah.
Basically, they were praying near the cave, as the angel had urged them to do, and they became aware of that light again shining on them. And when they looked up, the same angel was standing over them, and in his left hand, he held a chalice with a host suspended above it. I don't know what that means by a host. I can only think a person. Drops of blood fell from the host into the chalice, and leaving the chalice suspended in midair. The angel knelt down and made them repeat 3 times. Most Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I offer you the most precious body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ, present in all the tabernacles of the world, in reparation for all the outrages, sacrileges, and indifference with which he himself is offended. That sounds like a precursor to the Second World War. Mm-hmm. And through the infinite merits of his most sacred heart and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I beg of you the conversion of poor sinners. And then he took the chalice and the host, so it must have been something that was pouring blood in it, with both hands, and gave the host to Lucia, and they shared the chalice between Jacinta and Francisco. And he said,
"It's mass. It's like a mass, isn't it?"
Exactly that. He said, "Take and drink the body and blood of Jesus Christ,
which is
horribly outraged by ungrateful men, make reparations for their crimes and console your God." So that sounds to me, there's a warning of a future uprising, and that to me sounds like a warning of possibly a Second World War. Maybe reading too much into it, but
Well, this
aliens. There you go.
Now this one, it just sounds like a very twisted version of a hallucination of a mass. Yeah, you know what I mean to me? Now, bearing in mind, every Sunday these kids would go to church and receive, do whatever they do at church and have mass.
The drink of Christ, blah, 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 blah. Not. I would just like to state that's not me just dissing or dumbing down the Holy Communion. That's basically just giving you a quick synopsis of what happens. You put a bit of bread on your neck, you take a glass of wine, the priest goes, da 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 da.
Yeah, because it symbolises the blood of Christ and the body of Christ, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but that's what that sounds like to me, is that kind of thing. But again, incredibly adult symbology or hallucinations for kids.
And the words used, completely and utterly not going to be out of a 6-year-old's mouth or a 12-year-old's mouth.
Ooh.
If they saw some bloke floating with a chalice which was floating and blood dripping into it, they're not going to be they're not going to be saying the sort of sentences that is put down. So I believe, as Kerry said earlier, that it's an adult taking what they said in kids' terms and then putting that into words that adults would understand.
I've actually got some interesting facts for you. News just in. The host is basically the decanter that the wine goes in. Right?
Yeah.
Now, only priests can convert the bread and wine into the body and the blood. How can an angel do this? This question that has been raised with later apparitions, and basically when they said to this angel, whoever he was, how can you do this? Because only the priest can do this. And he went, yeah, only priests can do this, but angels are borrowing the consecrated host and wine from tabernacles of parishes. So, was there any parish or church nearby to where they were that was missing any of these decanters and cups, you know? And it said not a well-known fact until now, because it's only recently been discovered, is the fact that a local parish church 18 miles away had their host strangely missing from within the locked tabernacle at the same time. The chalice was present, but it had been moved to a different position from where it had been left inside the tabernacle. And the priest was dumbfounded as he held the only key, and he never told anybody other than his bishop. And it bothered him for years as he couldn't explain the disappearance of these items he was supposed to look after and be in his care. And a few months before he died, he basically said that this had happened just to get it off his chest.
When did that come out?
It doesn't give an exact date. It just says recently.
Ah.
Yeah, because we are talking, okay, there's going to be people that are going to be young, that are going to be at that particular age, that would remember that. Yeah, they're going to be old now, but they would have been anywhere where they are to this day. So, yeah, you've got that whole correlation. You've got people saying a story and then another thing comes out like 18 miles away, this happened, and then the connections are sort of like, oh, hang on, they sort of link, so we're gonna run with that. So
I would think, though, that with the fuss that there was towards the end, bearing in mind, at the end you had 70,000 people, you would have brought it up earlier.
This is what I was going to ask. So you've got the three sightings of the kids. When did the 75,000 people get involved?
Oh, that was later. That was in October. We'll get to that. You're jumping ahead, love.
Like me reading the book, I always want to jump to the back page.
No. But this all happened from between 1916 and 1917. So in a year, this is building up. Do you know what I mean? This whole thing is starting to build and gain feet, as it were.
Because not a lot of people, when you talk about the Our Lady of Fatima, as we have done on a show nearly 2 years ago, not a lot of people know that there was a precursor. All they know about is the 3 appearances of the Virgin Mary. They don't know about this space dude coming down
first.
and talking to them,
okay.
Because he appeared several occasions.
From a logical head, is there any link? Obviously, you say about the 3...
Logical? You're on a paranormal radio show with me. You can't be logical if you're on a show with me and Kerry. Nobody is.
Mark, I have to be sometimes when subjects that I'm trying to struggle to get into my noddle aren't getting in. And this is particular one of them. So is there any links between the Virgin Mary or whatever it was, the Mary, whatever, to Portugal?
Oh, she's
there was only that guy.
Yeah.
It was only him saying he was the Angel of Portugal. I still, to this day, don't see why she appeared personally to these 3 children. The only thing I can think of is, like, in religious terms, they were innocents and they hadn't done any harm to anybody. So I can understand why, if you believe that sort of thing, why she would appear to them.
Okay.
You know, because
I'm thinking Portugal, and where Mary, Joseph, Jesus, Jerusalem.
I see. No, as far as I'm aware, there's no link. But
in distance and this thing, I know at that particular time people came from all over, and there was people from all over different areas of the world were there. But I'm just trying to put my head round of the sightings in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't read too much into it, mate, because you've got like Lourdes and everything else like that, and all various places around the world where the Virgin Mary appears and things. But it's the same.
It's Lourdes and that is there's other ties to the religious element, the Lourdes and things like that.
Because in ties, that's just a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's like,
well, anyway.
you don't have.
Let's have a look at the first apparition of the Virgin Mary, because we're kind of like, it's a bit difficult to sort of know why this experience happened for these three particular children. I mean, who knows? Who knows what the gods above us do? So anyway, on Sunday, May the 13th, 1917, the kids were out with their flock as usual, and they were at somewhere called Cova da Iria, which is about a mile away from their homes. Now, what?
Cover the area.
Cover the area. Yeah. I don't know. How do you say it?
They were covering the area with their sheep.
I bet it was about a mile from their homes. Oh, shush. Anyway, suddenly a bright shaft of light came down. They described it as a flash of lightning. But they were a little frightened, but not too bad. You know, it was like they thought there's a storm coming. But the sky was clear. Now, oh dear.
Hang on.
I hear somebody killing somebody then.
Yes.
Who was the baby crying then?
It's my children. I do apologise if you can hear background noise. I've shouted at them precociously, but they're not bloody listening. They're not listening to me. Anyway, there was another flash of lightning, and the children thought they'd better go home in case there was a big storm. But another flash of lightning came, and they were like stopped right there. They got a bit scared at this point. And then this lady appeared in front of them. Now, they say that the lady was dressed all in white, more brilliant than the sun, shedding rays of light, clear and stronger than a crystal glass filled with the most sparkling water.
Yeah, because that really sounds like a 6-year-old's voice.
Well,
she was standing on her shrub as well. And
She had sparklers coming out of her butt.
She certainly did. But what's interesting about this point is there's something called a holm oak, which is a form of like bushy tree type thing. And she was supposed to have been standing over that. So she's not standing on the ground. She's standing above this holm oak plant thing.
If she's standing above a big bush, give her some scissors and some knife. That's all I'm saying. All right.
Now, basically, she tells them that she's going to come at that spot for the next 6 consecutive months on the 13th day at the same hour.
Everybody likes a woman that's regular.
Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
She
come on this day at this time. Oh, really?
Jesus, you too. So anyway, well, precisely.
Jesus, it was the Virgin Mary.
It was the Virgin Mary. So anyway, right? So, oh God, I've got to head them off before they go down that road too quickly. So she says to the kids, "Will you come back? Will you come back and see me at this time?" And this is where everything starts to gain feet, basically. And of course, the kids go, "Well, yeah, of course we will." And then she basically says, will you say many rosaries? And they're like, well, yeah, we do anyway. And
one thing I don't like about that.
Yeah, one of them, she says the 2 girls seem to be okay in this. And then they ask about the boy, Francisco. And the girl, this lady, answers, and again, this is from a very religious site that I took this from, so who knows whether this is the true words or not, but this is what was allegedly said. Him too, and he will have to say many rosaries. do you wish to offer yourselves to God to endure all the suffering that he may be pleased to send you as an act of reparation for the sins by which he is offended, and to ask for the conversion of sinners? Yeah? He says, as she said, you will have to suffer a lot, but the grace of God will be your comfort. Now, this is where the heart of the Virgin Mary comes in, because apparently she then made a gesture of basically a mother who offers her heart. Okay?
Well, the thing was, Lucia, she answered for all three of them. She said yes, quickly. Mm-hmm. And according to the, let's say the Gospel of Portugal, when she said yes, streams of light flowed from the hands of the lady who was there and went into the earth, the soil of the earth. And they all of a sudden felt deeply connected and dropped to their knees, praying as they had been taught to by the angel. And then Mary went on to say the rosary to obtain peace for the world and the end of war. Aha! I was nearly right. Then she glided away into the eastern sky until she couldn't be seen, and only Francisco was unable to hear her, although he saw everything. So the little boy couldn't actually hear her, but he could see. And that's like, to me, and you Kerry, you'll know what I'm on about, that's like my daughters. One can see and hear and interact with things I can't see, and the other one can't. She used to be able to, but as she got older, she can't. But that's like some, clairvoyants being able to see them, but not hear them. Some being able to hear them, not see them. I personally think so. Something along those lines might have happened, but the boy's mind wasn't opened enough.
Possibly. It's a difficult one, isn't it, to be fair, because you've got 3 kids at the end of the day who are incredibly religious. Could it just be that one child, the eldest, is leading the others in with her own personal religious fervour? I mean, you don't know, not knowing the children, it's very difficult to say, isn't it? So possibly it's a psychic vision, possibly it's not, possibly it's religious fervour, hallucinations even. I find it strange that it's almost like, it's good you girls are okay, you girls are good, but he's going to have to say many rosaries. I don't like that bit. It's almost like saying, he's not good enough, he's lower than you, he's sinned, so he's going to have to do more to get this. Whereas
what's the 6-year-old boy going to do? I mean,
whereas you two girls are already there. I mean, I just think it's a little much, quite frankly. You wouldn't put that on a child. And I'm not going to say as if I know the Virgin Mary or anything, or any of the gods and goddesses, but it's a bit like, acts of reparations for the sins of which he is offended. Yes, there is a world war going on at the moment at this time. So there are huge sins going on from both sides, not just, there's huge atrocities going on. But that's not what these 3 kids ain't doing that. They're not involved in that.
Yeah, but there's one thing you just said about, obviously, the Virgin Mary said this thing, blah, 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 the male. Would that have some sort of tie-in to... I don't know, but I'm just, from a point of view which you're saying it, I'm just thinking on it.
Were there any convents around there? That's just an idea that struck me.
No, I'm just thinking that if they're alienating the male for the sins of... Would that be the sins of man?
That's basically it,
possibly, yeah. I mean, possibly. That's an interpretation.
The way you said it, my mind's going, well, basically that's, in layman's terms, they're basically saying the sins of man in general, when women are true whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have one thing about this, and it's the same thing that we've spoken about on lots and lots of previous shows. When you've got people who don't come out and say anything for fear of ridicule, and then when they do come out and say stuff, and everybody ridicules them, these guys never said anything about the guy. They didn't say anything about the first one, but then they spoke to their mum, dad, and some of the elders in the village about seeing the Virgin Mary. And Lucia's dad immediately dismissed it, rollicked her, told her off big time about it, and said it was a great and shameful lie. And so did her mother, and all 3 of the children were shunned by the village. And
Some people took them seriously, though, because on the second appearance of the Virgin Mary, Our Lady, they were accompanied by 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to the place, they recited the rosary, again there was the lightning, and then the lady appeared over the tree, bush thing, the holm oak, sorry. And Lucia said, "What do you want from me?"
What age is?
I was just about to do that.
Lucia?
12. You know,
So she was the older one.
Poltergeisty.
She's the oldest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And anyway, she opened up basically, she goes, "I'd like you to bring us to heaven." And then Lucia said, "Will I stay there alone?" And the woman, the apparition, what?
Say it with me. Lucia.
Lucia, sorry.
Lucia.
Well, I'm just reading it.
No, say it with the husky voice. Come on, our listeners have got to go, damn, I need to go to the toilet. Say, Lucia.
And Lucia.
And there we go. Boing. Okay.
And there's the money shot.
There's Lucia.
Lucia. Then she opened her hands, basically, the apparition, and emanated light onto the children. Now, Jacinta and Francis seemed to be in the light that went up towards the sky, whereas Lucia stayed in the light that spread across the ground. Now, in the palm of the lady's hand, there was a heart surrounded by thorns that impaled it, and they understood that to be the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Okay. Well, you could turn that round to be thorns, crown, Jesus. You can jump to so many different conclusions to that.
Can I answer one of the questions in the chat room?
Yes, sorry, carry on.
Gemma said, didn't the poor girl get the blame for it and get carted off to the local priest?
Hold on a second. We're jumping ahead, old Gems.
Actually, it wasn't. No, there wasn't just once or twice. When she first came out with it, her dad did say, basically, I'm going to do an Irish accent there. "Ah, Jesus, I got slap! I'm going to take it down to the priest. The priest will sort you out." These days, we all know what the priest will do. But he took it down to the priest, and basically the priest went, "You will say all these Hail Marys, you foolish, wicked girl." And it happened not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. So, yes, Gemma, you're right. Gemma, you coming to my investigation?
Oh, shush about that. So anyway, that's what happened on the second. The third one, we'll talk about that in a minute. The third one, again, we've got a crowd of people. Now, it's not stating from any of the accounts I could find what the reaction of the crowd or what the crowd was witnessing.
The second one,
with the 50-odd people.
Yeah, the second one, there were some people there, and they actually didn't see Mary approach. The children did, but they didn't see Mary approach. But what the adults did, and that's an interesting thing, is the children can see it, but the adults can't, and that's it predominant in a lot of paranormal stuff.
Yeah, but, so you're going down the route of
you know where I'm going with that one, but exactly.
Of kids talking to spirits, imaginary friends, blah blah blah.
But the adults did say that they noticed that the sun actually seemed to dim, and it was a cloudless sky, and they said that the sun seemed to dim, even though they couldn't see them.
From a complete which I am, you know me, I'm always looking at things in a weird way. You don't know that.
Yeah, but Pornhub and
you need to look at, it could have been an eclipse, it could have been this, that and the other.
No, apparently not. Because I same thing, and when I've looked at it before, there was no eclipses around that time or anywhere near that time. So. Yeah,
but do we know the exact date? Do we know the exact
June 13th?
Yeah.
June 13th.
No, these are dated.
Yeah.
Like on the third apparition was July the 13th, 1917. Larger crowd of people. Lady on the Holm Oak again. Lucia was there. Basically, again, we say rosaries every day. We want to obtain world peace and end the war. Blah blah blah. And it's very, very generic. It goes very generic, you know, sacrifice yourself for sinners, say this prayer, do this. Again, more light going into the earth, and children saw visions of hell on the third apparition. and about Russia, converting Russia into the faith comes in at this point, and
Orthodox, yeah.
Yeah, that was on the third one. So anyway, it's starting to build. You're getting a crowd of people now, but not many accounts are coming out of it. The biggest level of accounts is on the biggest one at the end, right? So I'm going to skim that one because it's quite generic. Apart from them seeing hell, and the converting Russia.
The second one, when we were saying about the adults not being able to see it, but they saw the sun dim, and all the adults witnessed a wispy pillar of smoke that appeared next to a holm oak, whatever that is, and that they couldn't hear Mary's voice.
I didn't find any accounts on the second, or the only one I found accounts of was the last one.
I've got it here, but But when Mary spoke and the children were saying, "Oh, she's saying this, that, and the other," the adults couldn't hear a voice, but they did report a weird, low sound, and the people there reported it. It was like the buzzing of a bee.
Now that's interesting.
Yes.
Why is that interesting, Carl?
Well, if we're going to bring it down to a base level of paranormal as a base level and weird occurrences, there's the whole ultrasound that affects your brain that can basically give you hallucinations, everything like that. So there could be a natural phenomenon that produces that type of mass hallucination, as they would say, that could have caused this buzzing sound.
What about infrasound?
Yeah, there's natural occurrence of infrasound, so you can have a natural occurrence that will affect people's mentality.
That's called LSD.
The way their brain thinks, the way they see.
Yeah.
And that would, I'm just talking as a group, and
really high EMFs will do that.
Yeah, high EMF, everything like that,
which you can get, which are naturally occurring.
Absolutely, and if you're in a location, you've got loads of people, and there's a high this, a high that, you can have the whole mass hallucination. So they're all thinking they can see it, they all think they can hear it, when actually it's their brain playing tricks on.
And it would also explain why people were getting different things that they experienced. Yeah. Because everybody will react differently to the frequency of sound. You'll get a different physical response.
Well, I was just about to say, because we're all based on frequencies and vibrations, and the frequencies that the vibrations are at, etc., etc. But what would be interesting to do is to get, you can get a geo map of the ley lines. Is to superimpose that.
I would think it's more to do.
See if it hits there.
I would actually look.
Can I ask a question? Do we know the exact location of this?
Yeah, they built a bloody great big church thing on it now.
What part of Portugal?
South or north? I told you, the Casada area, Livia place.
That means whatever. You've got the
Algarve.
Honestly,
if you go on Google Maps, you'll see how big the church is. It's sort of in the middle, right? I'm not very good with geography. When I looked it up, it was sort of like in the middle-ish, because someone said, was it in marshland? And I was like, no, it's on arid land.
So you're talking you're talking the north coast, the banks onto the North Sea, not onto the Mediterranean.
Huh?
Look at Portugal as a country. Sticks onto Spain. The bottom half of Spain goes onto the Mediterranean.
I love the fact that I'm actually visualising Portugal, and I have literally no idea in regards to geographical positioning of anywhere in the world. You have to understand this.
Alpaca Mountains.
What I'm talking about is, if you can work out the positioning, you can see, like Mark said about ley lines, but you can also look about fault lines. Mm-hmm. You can look about things like that natural occurrences as the platonic plates move, things happen,
But you've got to remember, but back in the day when this was going on, they weren't looking at stuff like that, so none of that is documented.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing. From you look at it now, and
that's what we would do. Yeah, that is what we would do now.
So what I would do is look like Paul said. Who's Paul? Mark said that you can then look at star charts. You can then look at. 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 You can So
you look at more like the environmental
to
factors.
see whether
I'm actually looking at it now, and it's nearish to the coast. There's no rivers or lakes near it. There is a green bit that's about 20 miles away.
What's the nearest big town?
Right, hang on.
It's on Google Maps, everybody. Well, they're talking about that.
Because Portugal's basically a very slender boot going the other way.
Lombalegua or Loreria.
Okay, that sounds like the Lisbon side. That's like north.
Oh, yeah, I'm straight. I'm not a Lisbon, thank you.
Okay.
Lorera.
Can we get off this? Because I want to talk about the fourth apparition, right? Let's keep talking about the case, because we haven't finished with the case yet. Right, the fourth apparition. Now, the children were actually prevented to go by the civil authorities, but loads of people did go, right? But the children didn't. Now, the children were confined for 2 days.
Or June.
This is in August. We're on the fourth apparition.
Oh
my God. Jeepers. Oh my God. Now, where was I? They were confined and threatened to stop them doing this and make them deny this. But they stuck to their story. And basically, they were ready to die for it. They were ready to say, no, this is how much we are believing this. We are promised to, give our lives for this. We won't betray the promises we've made to what we're seeing. And they were released on August the 19th. Okay, so anyway, they then went off home, back out with their flock. And they went to a place called Valenhose. And then they saw the lady again above another holm oak. Holm oak seems to be a big factor in this.
It's a big bush, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and they said she really wants them to go back to the Cova de Iria, which is where it all happens originally. And then you will continue to say the rosary and just keep praying, basically.
I've just read one, and now you've got to remember, although I've spoken about this before at length when we've done other things, I've not actually known what Mary's supposed to have said to him. I literally just knew about the miracles, and that was it. And I've just read one of the things here. And what did I say earlier? Say earlier about I thought it was a precursor to World War II. Mm-hmm. She says here, doesn't she? The war, as in World War I, is going to end. But if the people do not cease offending God, a worse one, World War II, will break out during the pontificate of Pius XI, who nobody had heard of at that particular time and date, because he hadn't been elected then. Mm. And it was the Second World War she was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just found a map of where the location is, and it's just north of Lisbon.
We've gone off in tangents here, there and everywhere. We're on the fourth apparition where the kids were confined.
It's Lisbon's.
I know, right? On the fifth apparition, which was in September, 30,000 people accompanied them to the Cova de Iria. They all recited the rosary, and they're basically, she said, I want you to come here on October the 13th, and that you continue to recite the rosary to obtain the end of the war. In October, the Lord, the Sorrowful Lady, the Lady of Mount Carmel, and St. Joseph with the child Jesus will also come to bless the world. God is glad of your sacrifices. He does not want you to sleep with the cord to the sides. Use it only during the day. I don't know what the cord is. What is a cord? Not an accord, just a cord.
No, not an accord is, but I don't know what...
It probably means group, peopleage, so to speak.
Well, anyway, it doesn't want to sleep with them to the sides, so you only to use it during the day. Now, the last one, which is the most interesting, because this is the mass 70,000 people situation, was on October the 13th in 1917. 70,000 people.
Okay.
That's a hell of a lot.
July 1917, yeah.
No, this is October. We've done July.
Okay.
Did you know that they also got abducted on the August 13th one?
Well, it was
apparently
it was absolutely chucking it down with rape. We've done the abduction one. God, do you not been listening?
No.
Oh my God! Anyway, it was absolutely chucking it down. Everybody turns out for this last thing in October, right? Lucia says again, what do you want from us? What do you want from me? And she basically says, I want you to build a chapel in my honour and that people continue to recite the rosary. Will the war finish? The war is going to end and the soldiers will soon return to their homes. Now a conversation goes on. But what's interesting about this, bearing in mind 70,000 people are there, right? She asks for a miracle to prove that what they're seeing to these 70,000 people is what's happening, right?
Can I stop you there before you tell people what happened? I just literally want to get back to Gemma a second. And this, what she said about them being carted off to the priest and this, that, and the other. The worst one I think that happened to them was on this particular miracle. Before the miracle actually happened, they were taken away by the authorities and they were chucked into a male-only prison. You've got to remember, it's 3 kids chucked into a male-only prison.
That was on the 4th apparition. I said that. They took them away.
No,
threatened.
No, they were actually taken. They were actually taken by the authorities and said, shush. But the thing is they were bribed with jewellery and gold and this, that and the other by the authorities. Don't do this, don't do that. And the Catholic Church were behind it and said, please don't come forward and say this, that and the other. And then they were threatened with, they were shown a cauldron over a fire and told, if you carry on, and you reveal these secrets, the oil's going to be
threatened
boiled.
With death, and they stuck to their story. I'm sure I said that. I'm sure everybody else said that.
Carrie, you did.
You did.
I did say that, Carl, didn't I?
You did say that.
I was just embellishing on it,
But we've moved on from that.
Can I?
It's so frustrating, everybody. It's frustrating, is all I can say.
Just shush. Jesus, live in whatever. I just want to ask one question. So you said about obviously when there was the 70,000 people, blah, 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 this message came out which predicted the end of the war and spoke about the prediction to Russia and the end of that side of it.
No, the conversion of Russia.
Yep, sorry. The conversion of Russia. Build this church, blah, 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 blah.
The conversion of Russia was one of the previous ones.
Yeah.
Build the temple is in this one. The last one.
Yeah. Conversion of Russia of the poor nation of Russia to the Catholic faith, I think, is some of the words that were said.
Is Orthodox Catholic in Russia, is that the same as the Greek Orthodox? Because they seem to wear the same things and use the same things.
I don't know.
Different.
Anyway, let's finish telling you about this bloody last apparition. I'm going to read you an article from...
yes, Mama.
It was a principal anti-clerical publication of the day. It was called ODR. ODR. It was a Lisbon newspaper. And it says, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, midday by the sun, the rain stopped, the sky, pearly grey in colour, illuminated the vast arid landscape with a strange light. The sun had a transparent, gauzy veil so that eyes could be easily fixed upon it. The grey mother-of-pearl tone turned into a sheet of silver, which broke up as the clouds were torn apart, and the silver sun, enveloped in the same gauzy grey light, was seen to whirl and turn in the circle of broken clouds. A cry went up from every mouth, and people fell on their knees on the muddy ground. The light turned a beautiful blue, as if it had come through the stained glass windows of a cathedral, and spread itself over the people who knelt with outstretched hands. The blue faded slowly, and then the light seemed to pass through yellow glass. Yellow stains fell against white handkerchiefs, against the dark skirts of women. They were reported on the trees, on the stones, and on the Serra. People wept and prayed with uncovered heads in the presence of the miracle that they had awaited. There we go. That's what the newspaper said about it.
Then the credits rolled, and then Steven Spielberg's name came above it.
That's what a newspaper said. That is a newspaper journalist that was there at the time, and how he said.
Obviously, it's a journalist. It's been fluffed, as we say.
There's a little known thing as well. Is that something to do with Lucia's mother?
She went, "Oh my God!"
Right, this is her words. She was shocked to behold a magnificent fragrance. Now, the only thing I can say to that is, you got a crowd of 70,000 people, somebody cracked one off. That's it. And apparently she was a changed woman from that point forward, so...
Okay, so just for my own layman's head and just for me trying to understand. So the third sighting, 70,000 people...
No, not the third sighting, is it, Carl?
Sorry, which sighting are we talking about?
It is the sixth and the last apparition.
Well, not what I'm looking at.
Wow, see?
There was a letter written, a secret letter that was written back down in 1944 by Lucia, which is the last living Fatima seer, which was placed in the care of the Holy Seer and not to be revealed until 1960, which gave a different story of that seeing.
Yes. Now that was opened in 1960,
but
the contents... Well, there's two schools of thought. Some people say that what was predicted has not been released at all.
Yeah, that's right. I've got an eyewitness account of Monsignor John Quaresma, if you'd like me to read it out. Quaresma. Quaramante, Colimizzaro, Signor Pus. Anyway, at noon, this is his eyewitness testimony. At noontime, silence fell on the crowd and a low whispering of prayers could be heard. Suddenly, cries of joy filled the air. Many voices praised the Blessed Virgin. Arms were raised to point towards something that was above them. Look, don't you see? I too raised my eyes to probe the amplitude of the sky. I raised my eyes and I look up in the clouds, hoping to see what the other people were able to see. There was not a single cloud in the whole blue sky, yet to my astonishment I saw clearly and distinctly a luminous globe. So he saw glowing orbs coming from the east to the west.
I know where this is going, Mark.
I know, yeah.
I'm literally reading the guide.
Yeah, but
he's building up for it.
You could turn any written word round to one thing where you were going to shout.
Oh, he's not done it. He's waiting for his moment. We now have a sulky Carl in the studio.
Let me finish reading. Just let me finish reading this, and then I'll do your aliens. All right. Anyway, there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. Blah blah blah, and they saw a distinctly luminous globe coming from the east to the west, gliding slowly and majestically through space. My friend also looked up, and the friend was Vicar General of Aleria. Father Manuel Di Carmo Goes. He saw it. Coming in here, my friend also looked up and had the happiness of enjoying the same unexpected but enchanting apparition. Suddenly the globe with its extraordinary light disappeared before our eyes. Aliens! There was a little girl near us about the same age as Lucia, and she was excited with joy and kept saying, I still see her now, and she is coming down to the foot of the hill. So in other words, the adults saw whatever that orb was arrived, but when the passengers, whatever, got out of it, none of the adults saw it, but the children did.
Well...
So you basically have just completely switched, and you are believing what they saw, what they think.
I can see an orb in the mirror behind you, Cole. Is that an alien?
Basically.
It was basically an alien encounter, which is one of the theories which is behind it. Having said that, going on from this, as the children got older, they stuck to their story. Lucia was sainted, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She became Saint Lucia, and she entered the nunnery or the priesthood or whatever it was back then. She became a well-known religious figure. A massive temple, church, cathedral place has been built. Has been built on there. It's a place of pilgrimage for a lot of people. Right. They're talking about canonising, I think is the expression, the other two children at this moment in time. That still hasn't happened. That's still being looked at by the church.
Well, they died very young, didn't they?
And they died very young, yeah.
1920. So this Lucia woman who got sick and blah, blah, blah. But the other two, they died shortly after this whole experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the experiences struck me as radiation poisoning. They were feeling, after each experience, they were tired.
2 seconds. How have you jumped to radiation poisoning?
Well, because of how some of the accounts I read, it was stating that after each appearance or after each encounter, the children were very tired, they were very drained, it took them a while to get over it. The experiences, the hallucinations and the experiences they had could be put down to that. The shafts of sun, maybe it's not such a wacky theory.
No, you're on the right lines because of some of the adults.
Really long stretch.
It's not so sure.
Do you know what else is a long stretch? Elastic. Can I just say one thing about that last vision? And Carl, if you listen to what I'm just about to say and add that to the radiation thing, we might sort of be on the same line. But some of the adults actually describe that there was when the glowing orb or glowing norks appeared in the air, there was suddenly a cooling
glowing norks in the air. Is that what you just said, Mark? It was glowing orks.
Oh,
yes,
dear.
I did.
This is just getting slightly weird. I'm thinking this is a candid camera and I'm actually on the show and Jeremy Beadle's going to jump out and go, candid camera!
I have got a little hand, so I could be the new Beadle. Anyway, the adults described a cooling of the air, and there was a rush of wind as well. There was a dimming of the sun, so much so that thousands could see the stars at midday. And then a white mist surrounded this tree, and there was a shower of white iridescent petals that vanished upon reaching the ground, which to me sounds like sparks or something. But it's the fact that there was a strong wind and a cooling of the air.
No, because you can have a natural phenomenon that causes that.
You're going bald up.
Well,
really cool.
Radiation can be caused by a natural event.
Yeah, but not. I'm sorry. That's a long stretch, Kerry.
I wasn't thinking so when I was looking into this. When you look at the Tunguska event, which happened in Russia, which is a meteor hitting the Earth's surface, the radiation of that kicked out so much.
Yeah. Okay, I know.
And if that was happening, not necessarily where they were, but miles away from where they were, it possibly is an explanation.
No, Kerry. Everybody knows about that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another one for you.
Maybe it hit the.
Shut up a second. What I want to say is.
Oh, this discussion can go on for hours.
It was a phenomena.
That
caused a natural amount of radiation in that particular area.
Mm-hmm. No, it wouldn't be in that area, but it would be far away enough so they wouldn't get the initial effect like Tunguska.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. You look at where that hit Russia, to where they are in Portugal, you would have people in that timeline or that
not if it hit the atmosphere
that would be affected. And sorry, you're not proving that to me. No, I'm sorry.
It was an example because the timeline on Tunguska is not actually the same timeline as this, so it's not actually a link, but it was an example. It was a thought as I was reading it, rather than looking at it from an alien perspective. I was trying to look at looking at it from a natural perspective. Anyway, we are well running over on this, and I'm sure this discussion will go on to late in the night. Whatever happened with the three children, it was an incredibly fascinating encounter that they had that still causes much discussion. No, I love the fact that you're mind blown by this, but you should have done a lot more work on it, and then you would know where I'm coming from with that.
You wait till we're off air, Kerry. You are going to get it.
Let me say one thing about nuclear blast. Is back when you've got the Indian holy book, the Mahabharata, when they talk about the massive war that the gods had and the demons had up in the air with their vimaras, there are places in India that has got evidence and proof and radioactive isotopes in the ground from where huge blasts actually hit the ground.
Great, great. Can you prove that happened in Portugal?
No.
No.
Anyway, let's wrap this show up because we are running well over it. It's gone off into an argument.
That's saying I'm here, but 50,000 miles away, something else happening that has the same. I'm sorry.
Well, it's a theory. It's theories and possibilities of something that was incredibly strange that happened in Portugal in 1917. On that note, is another Dark Mirror show, guys. You never know where it's going to go. On that note, we thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, we are every other week on the Dark Mirror show. Who knows what we're going to be talking about next time we're on air. If you've missed any of our shows, don't forget you can catch up if you go over to our YouTube channel, Parasearch Radio, and don't forget to click like, share and subscribe. And also, don't forget to catch up with all the news on Parasearch Radio Facebook group page. The next show is on Sunday evening. Shush, Mark. I'm going to mute them. On Sunday evening, it is the Spirit Dimension. Myself and Claire Hinks are talking all about goals and resolutions and what you can do to achieve your goals and resolutions for the year. On that note, we bid you a very farewell. Say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night. And Carl, especially for you, aliens!
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.